We just talked about the state of Florida. Let's move north to South Carolina, where cases are spiking. More than 1,000 of them confirmed just yesterday. Joining us from West Columbia, South Carolina, NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber. Ellison, good morning. You've been talking about patients and doctors inside Lexington Medical Center, where I understand the ICU is nearing capacity.
Hey, Willie, yeah, this hospital officials tell us they have seen the numbers of hospitalizations, hospitalized COVID patients triple in recent days. And right now, in terms of their total number of deaths, they say 30% of the total number of COVID deaths have come in just the last 2 weeks. We spent the day inside Lexington Medical Center visiting the emergency department, a COVID floor, and the COVID ICU floor. We were screened, we were temperature checked before we were allowed inside, and then suited up in full PPE. This hospital has 18 beds on their COVID ICU floor. Yesterday, only 4 were left. Statewide, 75% of all hospital beds are now in use, according to the latest data released by the state's health department. Within minutes of walking on the COVID ICU floor, we saw a patient being intubated, put on a ventilator. It was the third patient to have to be intubated that day. It wasn't even lunchtime. This all happened well before 1 p.m. Doctors here say one of the lessons that they learned from watching what has happened in other states earlier in the pandemic and other hotspots like New York is that it is difficult to get COVID patients off of a ventilator alive. So this hospital tries to not intubate COVID patients unless it is a necessity, a true last resort. The fact that they had to intubate and put 3 people on ventilators yesterday was rare and a reminder of the massive challenges that they are facing at this hospital right now. Doctors say there is no question they are in a surge. Cases are rising. What they don't know is when the surge ends. The question is, how long can they handle the rising number of COVID patients in addition to other medical patients, people having heart attacks, people needing cancer treatment? We spoke to the doctor who did all 3 of those intubations yesterday. Here's some of what she told us from the floor of the COVID ICU unit here at Lexington Medical Center.
At some point, if we have enough patients that are sick, that are on ventilators and taking up our ICU beds, then we might not have ICU beds for patients who come in for other reasons.
Are you worried that this floor could hit that 18-bed capacity in the next week or so?
I think it might. I think there's a very good chance that our numbers will continue to climb. I don't think we've hit that peak at all. So I think we're going to be seeing increased numbers. And the thing is that from here, we don't have a place to go out.
I talked to one man who has been in the hospital because of COVID-19 since June 30th. He was only 52 years old. He said that he went to go get a test after he had symptoms, but then he heard absolutely nothing for 5 days.
By the time I got the attention, I couldn't breathe. I was weak. I couldn't walk from here to the restroom.
The state's Department of Health, what's known as DHEC, they have started to expand testing, but doctors here say it is simply not enough, that they don't have enough reagents to do the test that people are asking for, the tests that people need to see whether or not they have COVID-19. They say that is something that needs to be addressed at the federal level. For now, they say the best thing that people can do to help them is to wear a mask. We talked to the chief resident of this hospital yesterday. He said that right now, just some more of their numbers to really put this whole thing in perspective. They said if you test positive for COVID in this health district and are between the ages of 30 and 60, you have a 1 in 5 chance of being hospitalized right now and a 1 in 10 chance of needing to go to the critical care unit. The youngest person that has ever been treated on that COVID ICU floor, Willie, was just 21 years old. Willie?
Wow, that's an extraordinary exclusive look inside that ICU, and you're reminded of the bravery of those medical professionals. Ellison Barber, NBC News correspondent, thanks so much for bringing it to us. We appreciate it. Still ahead on Morning Joe, the promise to restore decency to the White House was part of George W. Bush's winning message 20 years ago. Former Bush campaign strategist Mark McKinnon explains why it could also be a winning message for Joe Biden. Senator Pat Roberts has now joined the growing list of Republican senators who say they are not planning to attend the Republican National Convention in Jacksonville next month. Senator Roberts is the 6th Republican senator to take a pass on the event, joining Chuck Grassley, Lamar Alexander, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Mitt Romney. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who said earlier this week he would attend the convention, told reporters yesterday the party may need to wait and see if the event can be held safely.
I think the convention is a challenging situation, and a number of my colleagues have announced that they're not going to attend, and we'll have to wait and see how things look in late August to determine whether or not you can safely convene that many people.
According to several officials with knowledge of plans around the convention, it could be moved outdoors. The Washington Post reports that no decision has been made yet, but Republican officials are studying 2 outdoor sports stadiums near the arena in Jacksonville, where the convention is currently scheduled to be held. The idea there, Susan Del Percio, is that it's less likely to be transmitted. Coronavirus is in an outdoor setting. Maybe you can distance in a bigger space. But the fact of the matter is this is whittling away. Democrats have already said it's going to be more of a virtual convention, most of it held online. They don't see the need to gather all those people in one place in the middle of a coronavirus crisis. So at the end of the day, as we approach next month, as we approach Jacksonville, is there going to be something that looks like a conventional Republican National Convention?
I don't see how it works out. I mean, let's face it, outdoors in Jacksonville in August has nightmare written all over it. Besides people not adapting to the heat well, I think elected officials don't want to be seen in that environment. And when we start looking about who's not attending, I would start looking at Cory Gardner out of Colorado, Tom Tillis out of North Carolina, Martha McSally, Arizona, maybe even Joni Ernst. What do they have in common? They're all in tough re-election bids and don't want to be tethered to the president right now. I mean, I don't think it'll work, but I think we're going to see a lot of people having to, come up with excuses not to, to be in their districts and be in their state instead of attending that convention.
Willie, all you have to do is follow the Republicans to see what's going on here. The Democrats, it was interesting yesterday, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris were all out stumping for Biden. Whereas if you look at all the senatorial advertising campaigns by Republicans, they are staying away from Trump. Once again, they're not piling on, but they are, once again, it's like he's not in their messages. So you have one party. Interesting other fact also is that we were worried about with the Bernie and Elizabeth voters coalesce around Biden. When a poll showed that 87% to 4 as far as Bernie Sanders voters would vote for Biden, and 90-0 would vote people who came from Warren. So in one party, they are coalescing and united. The other party right now is completely disparate, and you're seeing it in the no-shows in the convention.
And we should point out, in fairness, that Senator Roberts of Kansas, who announced he won't go, is 84 years old, and obviously that presents some concerns. Chuck Grassley said the same as well. Coming up next, we'll go live to South Carolina, where NBC News got an exclusive look at a COVID floor at one hospital in the state where cases and deaths are on the